Welcome back for another edition of I Am the Law! This week we will be continuing our story from the Book of Soulshackle. Proctor, I have a stronger trace on the transmission signal now, Calmore reported. The Vox signifier turned and nodded towards a half-open hatch. Check it, Calmore. Von Plius, Bidu, Carson, you're with Calmore. Find a route to where that signal's coming from. The rest of you with me, Colclord ordered. The Proctor Excitant caught up with Nielsen and Breaker. As they moved further in, following Breaker's hunt, Colclord saw what looked like twisted rags strung between several of the columns high above the arbitrators. His pace slowed and he stared more closely at the nearest. Magnification by his mirror-vised helm sharpened its outline and it resolved into a body. The skin flayed from head to toe. He detected a drip of blood. The corpse was fresh. Potential threats, stay on guard, stay together! Colclord warned the arbitrators. He saw Vargason stare at the corpses in turn. Suddenly, she stiffened. Threat prioris! Vargason shouted. 75! 92! Her shouted warning was crystal clear, and several arbitrators aimed as one of the critical spatial reference she had provided. They opened fire, one of the flayed corpses in their sights. The corpse suddenly dropped. One shotgun blast clipped it as it fell, but it twisted in midair. The creature spun and landed cat-like near Arbitrator Purdon. It rose and sprinted straight at her. Colclord recovered from seeing the dead seemingly rise and finally recognized the creature. Aldari, he thought with a scowl. The Xenos wore dark armor, hung with strips of flayed skin. It whipped out a long serrated blade, seeming to twist and flick it before it reached Purdon and attacked. Only desperate skill with her assault shield saved the arbitrator from evisceration. Before Colclord and the others could intervene, a blizzard of fire flew at them from at least 2 directions ahead. The Proctor Excitant saw 2, no 4, mere black figures appear. They sprinted between pools of shadow, firing long-barreled weapons. The Cybermastiff Breaker leapt for the Xenos, attacking Purdon, clamping its metal jaws onto the Aldari's leg. The Xenos screamed, rearing back and giving Purdon the seconds she needed to slam her shield into its ribs and drive it back. There was precious little cover, and Mactor and Skull took hits from the sprinting Xenos in the shadows, doubling up in agony. Colclord, realizing this was a killing ground, had orchestrated many himself, and without the rest of the squad they would not survive. Back! He voxed. Follow me, Nielsen, help Mactor! Colclord himself fired 2 shells at the shadows he had witnessed fire coming from. He was rewarded with a spray of blood. He slung his shotgun's strap over his shoulder, drew his pistol, and grabbed Skull under his arm. Vargason issued target priorities as the arbitrators fell back. Colclord and Nielsen fired their heavy-duty shot pistols as they dragged the injured along. The Xenos were held back long enough for Colclord to enable an ordered withdrawal. As he ran, he voxed Calmore of their situation, informing him they were on their way. Weaving between the wide columns, Colclord led his demi-team towards the hatch through which Calmore had gone. More enemy fire came from the direction of the ruptured wall and the stairwells. Blur near the ceiling caught Colclord's eye as he reached the hatch and hauled Skull through. He threw his pistol hand up instinctively in time to ward off a screeching creature that disappeared too quickly for him to target. The last arbitrator made it through and Nielsen heaved the hatch shut. Secure that hatch, Colclord snapped. See these filth don't get in here. Smiths! Execution position on this hatch. Be ready to pull back on my word. Colclord realized he was in an entirely different ship as he followed directions from Calmore to Vox Signifier's position. On his way, Colclord saw a panel bearing the scales and fist icon of the Adeptus Arbites. Beneath the sigil, he made out the name Bone Shackle in worn script. The name meant nothing to him, but the signal showed that this was a ship that had served the Lex. Colclord led all but Arbitrator Smiths deeper into the Bone Shackle. The Chirurgant, Bedu, met them halfway and took charge of Skull and Mactor. From the familiar layout, reminiscent of numerous prison barges the Proctor Excitant had served aboard, Colclord guessed he was in an annex deck of a multi-level bridge. As he made his way to Calmore, he directed Arbitrator von Plius to an overlooking balcony and installed Carson and Vargason in cover. The remaining arbitrators built up a defense among the connecting chambers. They jammed hatches shut and set up fire lanes and kill zones. There were still too many points of ingress to the bridge's annex deck. Coldclod realized all he could hope was to slow the Xenos enough that they could be shot. Yet the open nature of the Bone Shackle's layout, intended to make it easy for arbitrators to swarm various sections of the ship, would also serve Coldclod if he needed an extraction route. Coldclod found Calamore in what he recognized as the control chapel for a monolithic Vorder shrine. The shrine was a vast engine of communication, its workings stretching up through several decks. Coldclod had only once before seen a Vordor engine. It was said to contain stasis-bound remains of astropaths, psychic messengers capable of forcing encrypted messages through the warp. Calamore was hunched over a genomic auger console. "There's power," Calamore reported. Turning to Coldclod, "I don't know where from. The barge reactors are void cold. Can you tell our location? Who can we contact? Anybody?" Coldclod demanded. "Proctor, Nova system is operational. This is all the Bone Shackle has to give. I can transmit, I think. Can't tell you for how long or which region the message will reach, if any." There was a distant bang, followed by a screech of metal and a series of shotgun blasts. Coldclod turned to go, the Nuncio Aquila moving to follow. "Send as much about us as you can, Calamore," he said as he moved to join the others. "Let somebody know we're here with escaped prisoners. Then we're moving out. We have the witch still to find." Coldclod returned to the initial line of defences. He burst into an open area of decking in the midst of a firefight. 3 Eldari. Smith's corpse just behind them, trading shots with Carson and Vargason. Coldclod was gratified to see that one of Smith's killers already bled freely from a horrific wound. "By the Lex, I am witness to your judgment, Smiths," Coldclod quietly intoned. The Proctor Excitant ran to join Carson and Vargason. Seeing Nielsen not far away, 2 of the Eldari leapt a barricade, closing the distance rapidly. While Coldclod was ready, he thumbed an activation rune on his armoured cuff. The Nuncio Aquila rose swiftly and sped in the Eldari's direction. Blindingly bright light shone out from it. Coldclod spoke into the mouthpiece. His indignant voice boomed from the Nuncio Aquila's emitters. "Lay down your arms and beg for swift death for your crimes against the chosen instrument of the galaxy's master." The Xenos reeled as if physically struck. One almost dropped its rifle. They staggered, presenting easier targets. From his balcony position, Ponplius fired at the first Xeno, killing it explosively. The second fell to Breaker and Nielsen as they burst from cover. The Leash Master stunned the Eldari with a baton blow to the head before Breaker tore its throat out. "Calamore, is the message sent?" Coldclod voxed. There was no response, but a wash of static. Coldclod heard a scream from behind a side chamber and turned to see one of the Xenos jump through a hatch and run in his direction, fresh blood dripping from its armour. The Xenos carried a cleaver-like weapon in each hand, and its faceless mask bore down on Coldclod as it bounded effortlessly over obstacles. "Calamore, is it sent?" Coldclod shouted into the Vox. An avian screech cut through the tumult of shellfire. The dual-bladed Eldari stopped and turned. So did Coldclod. 2 of the jagged armoured Xenos stood on the overhead gantry. One bore a bird-like crest and was pointing directly at the Proctor Excitant. The other, Imperius, made a small gesture with its hand. The Eldari before Coldclod hissed, but turned and leapt away before he could react. For a moment, the thought that the capricious creatures had spared him flashed through Coldclod's mind. He was quickly disabused of the notion as the imperious Eldari on the balcony drew a curved blade, vaulted the balustrade and bore down upon him. The creature wanted to kill for itself, it seemed. "Proctor, it is sent. I've done all I can." Calamore's voice sounded in Coldclod Vox's beard. "EO K94, Coldclod voxed. Immediate extraction. Converge on my position now." We have reached the end of our journey. Join us next time for more. I am the law.